That's fine. I'll add these in here in a minute.
Yep, sounds good. They should be able to add them in while we're presenting, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us here tonight. We're going to go ahead and we're going to wait for our numbers to pop up here. We're waiting on a few guys to join before we get started. Okay, looks like we're kind of slowing down on people coming in, so we'll go ahead and kick this off. Thank you all for joining us here tonight. I am Taylor Moreland. I'm the owner of Agri Spray Drones. With me, we have Gabe out at Ag Pro and Ryan Watson, one of our product knowledge specialists here at Agri Spray Drones. So tonight we are talking about the Agras T20P. In my opinion, one of the most underrated spray drones currently available on the market. And we're going to try to explain why I think that. And Gabe's going to talk about his experience actually in the field using these drones this past summer. All right, let's get started. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay, here we go. Small drone, big performance. That's exactly what I think on the T20P for sure. Okay, so just an introduction about from me about myself. I grew up on a farm in Western Missouri. I've been using drones in ag since 2014. Started with the mapping side of things, the Phantom 4 back in the day. Currently, I live in Butler, Missouri, with my wife and our two sons, Brody and Brett, right there. And in addition to Agri Spray Drones, my wife and I also run a nonprofit called Frogmobility, where we design and build mobility devices for children with lower mobility, functionality issues. And we actually design these ourselves, little wheelchairs, little crawling devices. We've sent about 700 of them across the world over the past few years. So every time I have an opportunity to talk to a bunch of people, I like to let you guys know about this, just in case you have somebody that has a child that we can help. Look us up at Frogmobility online. Just Google search Frogmobility. You'll find us at thefrogfoundation.org. Okay. So before we kind of jump into the meat and potatoes of presentation here tonight, talking about T20P, kind of a deep dive discussion into it, just a background on Agri Spray Drones as a company, if you guys aren't familiar with us. So we are a full service spray drone firm where we everything from the drones to support to parts to FAA regulations to testing and research. We also do custom application, mainly so we can learn more about what we do with these drones, learn more about how we can help you as the end user, as the farmer, as the applicator. That's where I started in this, actually on the farm doing the application service myself. And so I believe that's where you guys are doing. So we want to be able to help you do the same. We are founded with the farmer in mind. This wasn't a whim that we started this company. This was a problem we saw in agriculture, essentially a supply-demand gap in the aerial application industry. And a great way to solve that is definitely with drones. And it's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger and better and better and better, these drones, and not just bigger, but more efficient, easier to use, and all around. It's really cool to see how not just farmers, but service providers and people outside of ag are getting into the ag industry utilizing this technology, which is exactly why our mission statement here at Agri Spray Drones is empowering rural America. It goes a lot further than just trying to solve a supply-demand gap and get acres covered that can't be covered with a helicopter or an airplane with drones. These drones are bringing people just like Gabe, deeper into ag, able to provide a service in an area that hasn't been able to have, an air application service, be able to provide better service for those who are underserved, and provide income in a rural area where that might not be available. You might not be able to start a business in some of those areas in rural America without being an ag, and there's not a lot of opportunity sometimes. Okay, so that's about agri-spray drones. Now we're going to get into the exciting part, the T20P and the T40, because those are kind of brother and sister drones. And we'll kind of talk about some different differences here. So kind of what we're going to do now is I'll kind of break from the sharing my screen, and I'll pull up the video. And I'm going to show you guys, I have a T20P and a T40 right here behind me. We'll kind of get a bit closer on them so you guys can actually see what they look like in person side by side. And then we'll kind of go through what makes T20P, T40 different, where they might have a fit. And then Gabe will kind of hop on and give some of his experience actually in the field operating these drones. So while you guys are on here, if you have questions, if you have comments, anything, please drop them in the chat, drop them in the Q&A, wherever you want to do that is fine. And we'll get to those kind of at the end of presentation here. Nothing is off limits. That's what I always tell everybody in our agri-spray Q&A sessions here. If you have anything you want to know about, even outside of T20P, T40, whatever, please ask and we will get your questions answered. Okay, welcome back, Gabe. I don't know what happened there. Okay, so if you guys will follow me over here, I think you can click on my video to make it a little bit bigger. Right here, this is the T20P. This is the T40. So right now, you guys can probably tell these are extremely similar drones. So between the two models here, what's the same and what's different? Well, obviously the tank on the T20P is 5 gallons. It's 20 liters, 5 gallons. The tank on the T40 is 40 liters, 10.5 gallons. Outside of that, there's really not a lot of difference. Of course, we need less motors, we need less thrust on a smaller drone. So we just have half the tank and half the motors on the T20P. Over here, you see we have double stack coaxial motors on T40, T20P, same motor, same props, same ESC, just one motor here. But camera's the same, radar's the same, the entire front shell is the same. Landing gear is a bit shorter. Of course, you don't need a taller landing gear with a shorter tank. The spray system is the same, pumps are the same. The nozzles back here are the same as the T40. Really, the only differences on these two drones are the arms, because we don't need as big of an arm. Arms are a bit smaller. Landing gear is a bit smaller. Frame's actually the same. And then our boards, our power board and our front boards, those are a bit different. Everything else is literally identical. So parts compatibility is really awesome between these two drones. So just some really quick bullet points to highlight, kind of some of the efficiency and a few things side by side with the T20P versus T40. So on the efficiency side of things, and Gabe will talk a bit more about this in detail in real world environment. On the efficiency side of things, on the T40, okay, we kind of go a bit more conservative maybe than some other folks out there. But on the T40, you're going to see conservatively on a half-mile long square field, a 2-gallon rate, 40 acres an hour of a T40 versus you can achieve 30 acres an hour out of a T20P in that same kind of a scenario, which is surprising to a lot of folks. Just because it's half the size doesn't mean it's half the efficiency. T40 is going to be more power hungry. We have double the motors. We have a bigger tank. We're using actually the same battery that we can use in the T20P. So we're going to change that battery every flight. essentially with the T40, every tank load. On the T20P, you can get 3 flights, sometimes even 4 flights with one battery charge, depending on how you use that drone for sure, at least from a large field application scenario. Swath width on the T40, you can definitely go, depending on how you operate it, less than 30 feet. But the testing, the data, and everything out there shows in the T40, you've got a 30 to 34-foot swath whenever you're operating it as efficiently as possible. T20P, you have a range there again, also, 21 to 28 feet is probably what you're going to see with T20P. Okay. And maybe, this might be a good time here to kind of talk about, or to switch this over to Gabe before I keep going on my rant about what I love about the T20P, because I can be on a soapbox for about an hour about this drone. So I think maybe it's a good time to switch this over to Gabe and just let him share some of his firsthand experience operating a T20P. And I'll just kind of give you a bit of an introduction. So Gabe had operated a T40, and what he found is that we actually got a T20P and tried it out and liked it more than the T40 for their scenarios that they were running. And then so they came to us for their second T20P, and he loves it a lot, and he's given it a big thumbs up. And he's been a champion for this drone, and has probably the most experience out of a lot of people, I would say, in the industry right now with the drone. So a perfect person to have on and answer you guys' questions and give you some firsthand experience. So Gabe, I'll kind of let you just kind of start wherever you'd like to start. And yeah.
My name is Gabe Martindale. I'm with Agri Farm Service out of Corona, Michigan. We're an ag retail business. We deal in agri-liquid fertilizer, Stein seed, Duraplast liquid storage tanks. And then this past year, we got into fungicide spraying with the drones. So kind of how it all started was I was spraying for a friend of mine in his New Holland ground rig sprayer, and just seeing that corn getting run over and having a lot of guys talking about that, just kind of thought maybe we should look into this a little bit. And um, the need for airplanes and the need for helicopters around here, there's just not enough of them to service. And so we ended up with a T40 to start. We decided that we should try out the T20Ps. Reason being, a lot of our fields are, 15 acres, 20 acres, 30 acres. We didn't really need the extra gallonage that the T40 holds. And so the T20P, it flies the same. It's a little more nimble. It's obviously lighter. We're using T40 batteries in it. So we're seeing, depending on field size and flight time to start points and from end points and everything, we're getting 3 to 4 loads per battery out of them, or per charge, I guess you could say. And I'd like to add on to what Taylor was saying about efficiency. We were actually seeing a little bit higher than 30. We were up, 35, 36 acres an hour with just the one. But it all depends on the size of the fields too. So, but I mean, other than that, we love it. This picture shows here our setup. We run a 15,000 watt Duramax generator in an 8.5 by 24-foot enclosed trailer with 2 Dura pumps, one for the clean water and one for the chemical mix to load the drone with, and 2 30-gallon induction cones. And we run hot loads and just land on the ground. So that's kind of our background for now. We sprayed about almost 3,000 acres last year. We did about 1,000 acres of cover crop as well this past year, and that's another thing too. I did a lot of annual ryegrass, which was a lower pound rate. It's a 10-pound rate, and some tillage radishes that were an 8-pound rate. And this thing just, I mean, you can do the one day, I think we did 600 acres in a day spreading the annual ryegrass. Well, that was with two of them, but still, they seem to perform just as well as a T40, and they're very impressive. So, is there anything else you'd like me to cover, Taylor?
Yeah, so I guess what I'm curious about in your operation, you went from one T40
Yes, sir.
to one T20P to two T20Ps,
Yes,
kind
sir.
of all in the same season, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. That's correct.
Um, so I guess differences first off, going from a T40 to a T20P, what were the differences that noticed right off the bat in terms of battery management, in terms of how maybe um, you had like what kind of setup you had with your trailer, pump system, I don't know, ground time, kind of how you operated it. Um,
Sure.
yeah,
So, like I said, we're running the T40 batteries. So when we switched to the T20P, um, we started with 4 batteries with the T40. And when we switched, obviously we had plenty of batteries just for the one. And which what I really saw was my brother is my tender guy, and it took a lot of stress off him huffing a battery every load. Now he's got 3 or 4 loads ahead of him before he's got to change a battery. Um, we got the second one, and we didn't do much spraying with the second one, but we did a lot of cover crop with both of them going, and with 4 batteries you can keep up with 4 batteries and 2 T20Ps going. So,
and yeah, that
um,
was one T30 charger per drone.
yes, sir.
Yeah,
Yes, sir. Yep.
and
One T30 charger and the 2 cooling stations. Yep.
and you ran both of those chargers off of that 15,000 watt generator.
Just one charger. Yep.
You ran one charger off 15,000 watt. Okay, gotcha.
Yes. Yep. So the generator is actually powering the whole trailer, and then we have plugs in the trailer that runs the charger, the pumps, the lights, the air conditioner, remote chart battery chargers, relay battery charger. I mean, we could run everything off of that.
Thing. So your cycle times had to be pretty quick for your efficiency with your one T20P on fungicide. You were saying north of 30 acres an hour.
Yes,
Um,
sir.
so your cycle times from takeoff to takeoff had to be real quick. I mean,
Yeah, they were out from takeoff to land. They were out for maybe 4 minutes,
yeah,
and it's constant with two of them, but you can get a lot done.
yeah, yeah. So was it did you do much work with two of them on fungicide, or any work on fungicide with both of them, or was it all just cover crop?
We did some bean fungicide with the two of them, but mainly it was the cover crop.
Yeah. What was it like going from one T20P to two with, you've got cycle time stacked in there, and you got basically 4 minutes, 4, maybe 5 minutes from a takeoff to takeoff. And so 2.5 minutes basically in between there for each drone or something like that.
Yep.
Was that difficult to manage?
Um, no. So there was some circumstances where, if T20 number one was running on some long rows and T22 was running on some shorter rows, they might come back at the same time. But then that just goes back to the battery life. You land one and just let the other one hover. It's got plenty of battery, and you get the first one going, and then you can land the second one. And uh, the battery is that was a game changer for us this year, because even with the T40 and 4 batteries, there was times where we were waiting for batteries to charge.
Mhm. Yeah.
So, but and then with the fungicide, we just mix hot loads into our cones, and so everything's all ready. And for my brother on the ground, it still gives him enough time to mix loads when it's time for that, or swap batteries, or do whatever he's got to do down there, paperwork. So,
So what are your ground what do your ground time look like? Because I mean you're only swapping a battery every third or fourth load, so most loads you're just filling the tank. So
yep,
from landing to takeoff, what's that in that scenario, what's that look like?
maybe a minute,
Yeah,
a minute and a half, somewhere in there.
yeah,
It's pretty fast. I mean, we're using a 15 gallon per minute Dura pump, so to fill 5 gallons, it doesn't take long.
yeah, gotcha. So yeah, it
And
probably takes
and if you don't have to switch batteries, it's even quicker.
longer for it just to come down and shut
Right.
the props off and start back up than it does fill the tank. Yeah,
Yep. Yep. Yep.
great, cool.
So we love
Um,
them. We're very
what
happy with them.
advice, I guess, what advice would you have for somebody, looking to get into this industry, either for a drone on the farm or for a drone for custom application, and debating between the two, between T40 or T20P, or maybe two T20Ps or one T40. I guess, what's kind of your advice, things that you might want to consider for somebody getting into it?
Um, Field size to me is a big thing, I guess. If you have a lot of smaller fields, go with the T20P. There's nothing wrong with a T40. Just from what I've seen though, running in the small fields with the T40, it is a little slower. It takes a little more time to slow down, turn, and do that kind of thing. Um, Another big thing in the whole, if you're looking to buy one, is have a good tender setup. You want to try and be as efficient as you can with your tendering. And we kind of threw our trailer together. We put a lot of thought into it, and it works great the way we have it set up. um have a good spotter or someone that's loading you. Try to have 2 people going with you at the same time. It's doing it by yourself. I've done it, and it takes a while doing that. But T20P, if you're looking to do it for your own farm or custom, it's good both ways, I would say. Uh, Saying that, there's, like I said, there's nothing wrong with the T40s, but we love the T20s and how they run, and the batteries too. So they're good. Communication. And
How
sales.
often, I guess maybe did you ever find yourself after you made that switch and started running the T20P, did you ever find yourself on any certain particular fields wishing you had the T40 back for certain types of fields?
Um, yes and no. The half milers, yeah, that would have been nice, but it's right on a half-mile field. If you when you go down and back, you run out, and at 2 gallons.
Yeah, I
So
guess depending on what swath width you're
yes,
running. Yeah,
yep. Narrow the swath width down a little bit. You can
yeah,
do it down and back. Yep. I think it was like 20. We were running 28 feet, and on the half milers, we narrow it down to like 22 or something like that. And that would make it do the full round.
yeah. And what did you see as far as coverage at a 28-foot route spacing? Um, what'd you see as, did coverage look good? Did you see any kind
Yeah.
of any? Yeah,
Yeah, it looked great. We used a product called Loctite as an adjuvant that works really well and helps too. Um, but no different from, there might been a little bit of less prop wash from the T40, but it looks pretty good coming down the field, just like the T40 did. It's blowing her down in there.
Yeah, sure thing.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, you had a lot of good points here. I mean, I think a lot of this you probably covered, as far as, whenever I'm thinking about myself, what I like about the T20P, um, compared to specifically like the T40, this is kind of my short list, I guess, why I like the T20P. And the biggest thing really is probably the battery life. And
yes.
I'll give you guys the short story on the T20P. It was actually going to come to market into the US about this time last year, about October of 2022. But DJI asked me, they said, hey, T20P, it exists. Do you think it's going to be a good drone for the U.S. market? Should we get the export license to the U.S. market? And I told DJI no. I said, why would anybody want a T20P? Why would anybody want a T20P whenever the T40 is coming out? Everybody just wants the biggest drones. Okay. And
There's better, not always correct.
yeah, so bigger is not always better. And so I told DJI that a year ago. Um, Flash forward to this summer, and DJI had lots of T20Ps, and so they went ahead and got the export license into the U.S. market, and made it available. And so we got curious, of course, and got some in. And after we started running the T20Ps ourselves and started talking to guys like Gabe, and realizing that it's a T40 and everything's the same, half the tank, same battery, and that concept is different, and that
Yeah.
concept is unique, and that concept actually has a lot of value. Every drone every spray drone that's ever come to market that's been big news has been a big drone with a battery that is just big enough to get the job done, right? Because
Yeah.
you don't need to fly for 20 minutes whenever your tank empties out every 5 or 6, right?
Right. Right.
That's kind of the thinking. And that's how the T40 is. That's how T30 was. Every big drone is like that. The battery life is not going to last for a long time. Um, but when you have a drone like the T20P that is transportable, it's not a big heavy drone, so you can easily transport it, and the battery life lasts as long as it does, then that opens you up for a lot of very unique opportunities, and not just being able to have ease of use in terms of operations where you don't have to swap battery every time. You can go every 3 times, 4 times, and it saves your back. Not just that.
That's another thing, Taylor, too, is the T20P, our setup and teardown time, even with two of them, is quicker because I grab one and my brother grabs one and we go set them up. It's not a two-person thing. You can just pick them right up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And because of the battery life, you only need 2 batteries per drone.
Right.
So it's less
Right.
stuff to haul. Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And just for everybody else on here, you have versatility when it comes to the T20P, not just with what you can do with longer flight time, but also versatility on what you can, what kind of setups you can run with it. So but you can run the T30, the T40, the T50, which is actually the DB1560 battery that's coming with every new T40 now has the T50 battery. You can run that in the T20P. There is also a T20P battery, but why run that battery whenever it's smaller and half the size, half the capacity, whenever you can run T30, T40, T50 battery in it and have this awesome flight time. So very versatile. Um, and yeah, one T30 charge. And what we've found with ours, and of course it probably depends how you operate it, of course, but what we found with ours is most like with a T30 charger, you run that with for a T40, and you've got to run uh full uh full amperage, full 240 volts to the charger. It's gonna be pulling about 8,000 watts doing that. And it's still not going to charge quite as fast as you need it to on some operations with the T40. So you kind of need like a charger and a half sometimes with the T40. With the T20P, you could run like we have a Predator 9500 from Harbor Freight, an inverter generator, super quiet, and we run the charger, the T30 charger, with one power supply on 240 and one power supply on 110, and then that generator can actually operate it, which is awesome because it's nice and quiet, and the charging speed's great. It's all we need for the T20P, which is really cool. And something I don't have on here is you can fit all that stuff. You know, a trailer's nice if you're doing big jobs, but if you're doing small jobs, it'll all fit in the back of a pickup truck.
Yeah, especially the T20Ps. They're just that much smaller.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah, you can easily get it in and out of the back of a pickup truck. Your generator, your batteries, your chargers all fit back there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's really nice to have that convenience, especially if you have smaller fields where you're bouncing from one to the next, to the next, to the next. Yeah, having that agility, it's great. And you know, I know there's a lot of guys out here, maybe probably even on tonight, that have a T40. Um, and you might have your job split where it's like you've got some big long run fields, and then you've also got some small pain in the butt fields.
Yep.
And you've also got some spot spraying jobs, right? And so, you know, in my opinion, kind of as these uh as spray services grow, there's probably a need for both a large drone platform and a small drone platform. We've
Mhm.
actually seen this concept with current aerial applicators. You know, we work with helicopter guys, airplane guys, that are adding drones to their fleet, because why send a helicopter and airplane to go do a bunch of 30-acre fields that are surrounded by trees and power lines? It's dangerous, and you're not going to get much done whenever you can send a guy with a drone. And so, a lot of aerial
Mhm.
applicators are actually adding drones to their fleet. And so that diversification is kind of the same thing here when it comes to T40, T20P. If you have an area where it's split between big quarter sections and small fields, then there could be a play there, I think, especially with the parts compatibility.
Yeah,
Yeah. Mhm.
for sure. And yeah, the parts, I mean, like you said, when you're in the first part there, it's everything's the same. There's just four less motors and eight less blades.
Exactly. Yeah. Um, so before we kind of take questions, I guess in my mind, who is the T20P for? This is kind of a short list that I came up with. So first time spray drone pilots. If especially if you're going from like operating a Mavic with 40-minute flight time to a spray drone, where you have short flight time and um, not quite as agile. T20P is a great transition there, because it's very, very forgiving. And then if you're looking
Mhm.
for a drone like on the farm, a lot of farmers, you know, they've never operated a drone, period. You know, um, but there's a huge need for drones, on the farm, not even necessarily to spray the entire farm, but if you got a field that somebody can't get to till next week, or you've got spot spraying to do, you've got to hit terrace channels that have weeds pop up. T20P is budget friendly and it can pay for itself in a farm scenario where one or two applications can save you a lot of money, if you do them at the right time. That's where I think, as an on-farm drone, it makes a lot of sense. Hmm.
I can agree.
And then, yeah, having that versatility. There's a lot of niche applications. We look at, um, there's a lot of pumpkin patches, small vineyards, small, niche type crops, that where a drone would be very useful, but a T40 is just a really big setup, too big, too costly. So yeah, I see it being a big play there too.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. We're gonna open it up for questions, and looks like we got several in the chat and in the Q&A. And so Gabe and I will bounce these off each other. If you guys forget to ask a question tonight, to have something pop up, our contact info is on the screen. Of course, you guys know where to find us. We also have on our YouTube channel, we have a couple of a few T20P videos out there. One doing spot spraying and then one doing a whole field kind of type scenario, just to kind of show you guys how they actually work, in a real world scenario. So check those out, and we'll have more coming. And I guess, well, I'll touch on something a bit later, maybe. Okay, we'll go ahead and open this up.
Real quick, you've also got, I just put a picture in there if you can get to it. It's got the back of the pickup truck off one of the YouTube videos.
I'm gonna have to exit out and then come back in.
There it is.
Oh, here it is. There you go. Yeah. Yeah, there you go. So that's from just one of our more recent YouTube videos. And we were of course just spraying water in the video here. But yeah, one charger, this is a T30 battery. They have one T30 battery in the drone and one here by the charger. Predator generator, IBC tote. This is an 8-foot bed pickup here. Then we just have a cage pump over here, shuttle pump over here, with about a 30-foot hose. And so yeah, you put some recirculation back into the top of this tank, and that's your setup. I mean, that's as simple of a setup, I think, as you could get. And your T20P just slides right in here, going from field to field. Thanks for that, Ryan.
Yep, no problem.
Okay. We'll start at the top of the chat. Looks like it's where we have the most questions. So yeah, Gabe, I guess I'll read these, and then if you want to answer them, just
Yep.
All right. So Jeff asked, what is the wind limitations of the T20P and the T40? Well, and this is a good question, Jeff, but there's kind of a two-part answer to this, because the drones can actually handle quite a bit of wind, as far as like what they can operate in. But you're more so, in my opinion, gonna be limited by your drift, right? If and how good of a job you actually want to do your off-target application. So the drones will handle 15, 20 mile an hour per hour wind and actually operate, but you're not probably going to do as good of a job as far as on target application with your product. Yeah. Gabe, anything else?
That's one thing we kind of learned from this past year is, like a 12 or 13 mile an hour wind, it's getting time to shut it down probably.
Yeah. But yeah, I guess
and battery usage, if you're flying into the wind, it's gonna not help.
Yeah. Yeah. And wind is going to affect, it's going to affect your pattern, and it's going to affect your battery. It's going to increase drift. It can narrow or widen your swath. So yeah, wind is always a challenge. The machines will handle it just fine, but yeah, application efficacy. Okay, battery life cycles. That's a question. Okay, so I'm assuming what you mean on battery life cycles is how many charge cycles do you get before a battery goes dead? You can't use it anymore. You have to replace it. I don't think anybody has a great answer to this, because technically the T40, T50 batteries that you're going to use with the T20P, they say 1,500 charge cycles is the warranty limit on them, or 1 year. You're going to hit the 1 year before you do that. So we don't know. I mean, nobody's hit 1,500 charge cycles on a battery yet. They just came out this past year. But if that's the case, and you can get 3 tank loads per battery charge with the T20P, that's 15 gallons sprayed out in 3 tank loads. That's 7.5 acres. 7.5 times 1,500. I don't have a calculator, but 7.5 times 1,500 times 2 batteries, and that's how many acres you should cover.
22,500.
22,000 acres. Bingo. So we'll see. Be a while till you get there, Gabe.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hopefully not.
Well, hopefully not. You're right. Yeah, you'll have a
Right.
full season under your belt next year.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, and another question here from Adnan. Looks like he says 30 acres per hour spraying time, including mapping question mark. I would say no on that. Yeah.
This year I pre-mapped all of our fields. So we pull up, we unload and we spray. There was a few, after, when the season was slowing down, we had stragglers calling, we just go meet them and then just map it, but it only takes 5 minutes to drop a map.
Yeah. Yeah, the DJI system is so incredibly simple.
It's easy.
And really versatile too, because the DJI system on mapping, it's as simple as you've got your remote, it's got Google Maps imagery on there, tap, 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 done, right?
Yep.
It's as simple as that. Or you can make it as detailed as using a mapping drone like the M3M or the M3T, and then using the Smart Farm Cloud, the DJI Smart Farm Cloud, to upload that imagery, fly over the field with the M3 and M3T or another mapping drone. It takes images of the field. You have highly detailed drone imagery then, and it goes to the cloud. It goes to the remote. You can map it on a computer with that imagery. You can map it on the remote with that imagery. You can even import shape files if you already have those for boundaries. I mean, it's incredibly versatile system. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, another question. How many liters do you spray per acre fungicides? You guys probably it says liters, but you guys are at probably 2 gallons per acre.
2 gallons.
Yeah.
Yep.
Spray swath, of course, depends on flight height. That is correct. Battery charge time question mark. So battery charge time with the T30 charger, of course, it depends how low you run the batteries. But if you're running these chargers at full 240 on both power supplies, you're going to be from 20% to full. You're going to be right around 10 minutes or a little bit over 10 minutes per battery charge. But there again, you've got 3 flight times, 3 flight cycles, so you're not going to need that for 15 minutes. So with T20P, anyways. Okay, 16 and 20 liters are most efficient drones by capacity. You're probably right, Adnan, on that actually. Okay, what droplet size setting did you use on the T20P, Gabe?
The 500 Newton meters,
Big
the
one,
largest
yeah.
droplet. Yep.
And what was your reasoning behind that?
Just to get coverage down into the canopy, and especially if we did have a little bit of wind, just keep it up so we reduce drift.
Yeah. So yeah, it increased uniformity and consistency, and I'm sure it helped there. Yeah.
Yep. When we did a few pumpkins and some pickles this year too, and I did drop that down a little bit just to get more coverage. We did it early in the morning, no wind, and just to help blow it up under them leaves and everything on the big leaves of the pumpkins and pickles. So
yeah. Adnan, you've got a lot of questions in here.
A lot of it was as you were going during your presentation.
Yeah, sure thing. Yeah, bigger drones cost more for maintenance. That is a good, actually, it's not really a question, I guess, but it's a good statement. Yeah, if a T40 crashes and T20P crashes, which one's cheaper to repair? And you've got more moving parts, obviously, double the motors on T40. So yeah, you are right, Adnan, on T20P being lower cost for maintenance. Not that in my opinion that should not be your deciding factor between these two drones, because maintenance cost on both of them is still very cheap.
yeah.
Okay, looks like George, how much payload does it lose using T40 batteries instead of T20P batteries, and how much longer flight time do I get from a T40 battery versus a T20P battery? or is the weight the same for both batteries? You guys filled your tank all the way up, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
sure thing.
So one thing I can say that I noticed with the T40 on a full tank from takeoff to start point, you're using quite a bit. You're using 15%. If your start point was a little ways away, you're using 20%. The T20 with the T40 batteries, you're using 5 or maybe 10, depending on how far you're going. On both on a full tank, so 10 gallons or 5 gallons.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what, when we tested flight times with T40 and T20P side by side with T40 batteries, both of them, and full, we got a hover time of around it was about 7 minutes with the T40 in a calm wind. Well, not quite 7 minutes actually. And with the T20P with a full tank, we had a hover time of over 13 minutes.
Yeah.
So it was double the hover time. And then empty tank, you're looking at 26 minutes on as what we got with T20P.
Yep.
So, yeah, it was awesome. Okay, Don says, do we have a product that is applied at half gallon per acre? My math says the T40 will run out of battery before tank is empty. Would the T20, have enough battery life to empty the tank at this rate?
Yes.
Yeah, I would agree.
No problem.
Yep.
With T20P with a T40 battery, no problem.
Yeah. And that's what we haven't done necessarily side-by-side comparisons with like flight time on T30 battery with a T20P versus a T40 battery with T20P versus a T50 battery with T20P. But we run a lot of the T30 batteries in our T20Ps. They cost they're $500 less. They're lighter, and they're not that much less amperage. And yeah, we can easily get 3 tank loads out of it, and probably we can get 4 depending on what we're doing. Yeah. So, okay. How do you do mapping manual using small drones? I think we talked about this already, Adnan. But yeah, Gabe, you just use the screen and
I did everything manually on the remote this year. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Jesse asked, did you do any spot spraying?
We did one field that had some weeds in it. It was a bean field, and that's the only herbicide that we've run through our drone. We're not gonna make a habit of it just for liability reasons around here. But it did work, and I I don't really have much else to say about it other than it worked good.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
So
Yeah, that's interesting, because I think outside looking in, everybody sees the T20P as, well, spot spraying drone, right?
Yeah.
And here you did one job of spot spraying
Yeah.
with yours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like 4 acres or something. It wasn't
Yeah.
much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it is a fantastic drone for that job.
Yes.
You can do a lot more with it. And yeah, if you combine, like one of our videos shows, one method of how to do spot spraying with T20P. There are different methods. You can manually fly it, you can do manual plus. You can use software like Pix4D has some really, really cool software. That's one thing. We've been looking at software for spot spraying for quite a while, with these spray drones. And we've always been underwhelmed with what existed, what was out there and how well it worked, how easy it was, until Pix4D came along with their magic tool. So if you guys haven't checked Pix4D out, I'd recommend it. We were actually so impressed with the functionality of the magic tool for spot spraying on Pix4D and the ease of use in combination with that it's the first software we've been really excited about. So we actually became distributors with Pix4D because when you combine a mapping drone like the M3M or the M3T with Pix4D, with the T20P. I mean, your spot spraying is a real, functional application.
Yeah.
Yeah, here we go. Chase, thanks for joining us. Can't get enough of me. Any difference in terrain following compared to a T40? What's your thoughts on that, Gabe?
I think it's a little better because of the weight and the agility of it itself. We did do some pretty hilly fields this year, and it did do better than the T40. I'll give it that.
Just because it's more agile, you think?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Inputs respond quicker.
Yeah, quicker response. Obviously, it's lighter, so has a little more time to think about what it's doing.
Yeah, you bet. And one thing I'll note here, so DJI is actually working on firmware updates right now for the and their focus is the T40, right? DJI's big focus is T40. It's the flagship drone for this coming season, second year in a row, which is actually a really good thing because we're coming into our second season with the T40 platform. We know everything about it. We've seen all the issues. We know all the pitfalls. We know how to fix it. We know the parts. There's a huge amount of support behind the T40, which is awesome, and it's been a very reliable drone. And so DJI is actually doing some firmware updates that'll be available shortly after the first of the year for the T40 specifically to improve terrain following. But everything that's done on the T40, it's the same firmware for the T20P. And so when terrain following improves on the T40 through some firmware, it'll also improve on the T20P. Flight speed increase is actually something that's also coming. Sometime Q1 of 2024 for both the T20P and the T40, which is going to be huge on the T20P. That a flight speed increase, yeah, would be huge for efficiency increase.
While spraying or just
while spraying? Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that would be great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
One thing I will say about the terrain following question, if you're going to be using a multispectral for your mapping or the M3T or whichever one the thermal one is, that will help a lot too. Just because if you're just mapping on the remote, it's obviously not going to know where the hills are and gullies or whatever you got.
Yeah, that's a good point, Gabe. And there's a lot of change actually coming on the mapping side, like the drone orthomosaic mapping front with different softwares for this coming season. And we mentioned Pix4D, but DJI Smart Farm Web is a platform that is technically currently in beta testing, but anybody can get access to it as like a trial version kind of thing. And it's a cloud-based mapping software that actually it stitches the imagery together from the M3M or the M3T on the cloud, and it does it super seamlessly. I mean, it's the easiest way to get drone imagery on a system that you can map, create boundaries, and it flows right into the T20P, flows right into the T40. It's a really cool system. We'll have videos on that coming up soon. But yeah, really, really cool. Okay, yeah, Jesse says, oh, you got your first you got your M3T and your T20P being delivered next week. Any tips, Gabe, any tips for a first timer?
If you haven't flown drones, which I hadn't flown one single drone until we got the T40, just go practice. I put probably 12 hours on ours before I even put water in it. Just fly it around. If you've got a field to go to, go map it out, go see what works best for you, how to run that field. There's tricks to everything, go find a field with some power lines in it and go make your route or go map it and make your routes and figure out what the best way for you to do that is, just for efficiency. That's a huge thing. Just go use it. Get the hang of it.
Yeah. And Gabe, definitely, I think, I would echo that first statement there. Practice, practice is huge. Manually
Yes.
flying, understanding how to
Yes.
manually fly is really, really big, because the
Yep.
beauty of the DJI system is it's, what I considered a hybrid between manual and autonomous operation. It's fully autonomous when you want it to be. When you need it to be manual, you can take over at any
It's
point in
instant.
time. It's instant.
Yep.
It's instant and it's seamless, which is great.
Yep.
Yeah, being a good pilot is number one. And Jesse, um, you should have access to our knowledge hub, and so on there, under Agris resources, under T40 T20P, there's a bunch of videos in there that walk through the software, walk through kind of how to do your first flight, walk through everything. So look through those. And that'll be a big help. And then practice in a big open field with no obstacles or anything first.
Do that first. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, Sam asked,
Manual,
go ahead.
sorry, just manual flight, as in takeoffs and landings will save a lot of time. When we first got our T40, I was doing the automatic takeoff and the automatic landing just to get the hang of it first, and then once I felt comfortable flying it in and out, I would start landing and taking off myself. But I mean, by the end of the season, I don't know how many times I've landed and took these things off, and it's natural now. It helps a lot with your efficiency too.
Yeah. And reasoning behind that, Gabe, is because you can and whenever the drone does things autonomously, then it has to turn and fly forward and turn
One
and
motion at a time.
yeah. And I guess on the return to home side with the T40 T20P, whenever it comes into the home point, it does have a fluid, now it has like a fluid spinning motion.
Yes. Yep.
But you can do that yourself, and you can do that faster, and you can
Yes.
you can do very, very fluid motions faster. So yeah,
Yes.
I would agree with that statement.
Yep.
And it's a lot more fun to fly the drone.
It is.
Sometimes it gets very monotonous throughout the day, just filling the tank,
If you're not,
swapping batteries.
if you're just sitting on the trailer letting it do it itself, you get bored.
Yeah.
And you won't get as much done either.
Yeah. Sam asked, what is the price difference for T20P versus T40? So MSRP on the drone itself, T20P is like 13,000 and T40 is like 20,000. And that's drone and remote. Then you have batteries and chargers and whatnot. So you need the minimum you need on a T40 is 3 batteries and 1 charger. But like Gabe said, he had 4 batteries and 1 charger, and you had some fields that I'm assuming some bigger fields.
Yes.
That you were spraying.
They were catching up to us.
And you were catching up. So the biggest thing there is the charger. So you really need like 1.5 chargers with the T40, 1.5 T40 chargers or T30 chargers to operate a T40 continuously, which means you kind of have to run 2 chargers. Yeah. And so that kind of doubles your battery costs and whatnot. So you're looking at, it's going to be close to $30,000, around $30,000 for like if you want a full setup, 24/7 operation, 4 batteries, 2 chargers, T40, and then you're gonna have to have a generator to support those 2 chargers also, which is a bigger generator. Or
if you have a lot of big fields, I would highly recommend 2 chargers. When we had our T40, like I'd mentioned earlier, we do a lot of smaller fields, so we have a lot of time moving, and we would just leave our generator running and leave our batteries charging to catch up, and that really helps us. But it's the big fields that'll get you.
Exactly. Yeah. I agree. And then so yeah, you're looking at right around 30,000 or so for T40, plus generator, and support equipment. For T20P, 13,000 for the drone. You really only need 2 batteries, and really only need 1 charger. So you're looking at $5,000 in batteries and $1,500 for a charger. So you're looking at under 20,000 for like that minimum kind of setup. Yeah, so there's a $10,000 difference really between T20P and T40. Jonathan asks, for pasture management, would an IBC tote and pump be enough for mixing and loading chemical? Well, would it be enough? Could you manage it? Sure, you can manage it, Jonathan. If you're going to be putting products in like for pasture management, you're going to be group 4 herbicides, you're going to be Grazon, 2,4-D, dicamba, Tordon, stuff like that. So you would want to keep that IBC tote separate from your fungicide stuff, and probably even keep a separate pump, separate. But yeah, you can definitely keep products agitated in an IBC tote. They make mixers for them too. Yeah. So, but again, that's kind of like minimum setup. Like Gabe, they've got cone bottom tanks, and they've got a nice setup with good pumps and good plumbing in their trailer.
And that's what we use. It's pretty much I think is what he's saying, a cage tank pump.
Yeah.
That's what we have, and we just mounted them to the wall in our trailer, the 15 gallon per minute pumps.
Yeah.
Exactly. And they work they're not the fastest, but they're fast enough, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially for the T20 with the 5 gallon, it doesn't take long at all.
Right. But for mixing chemical, you're using cone bottom tanks, like inductor tanks.
So we have the 500 gallon freshwater tank that we just keep the water in, and then we have a clean water pump that will fill the 30 gallon induction cone tank, and then we just mix hot loads in the 2 induction cones.
Yeah, and that's a great setup. It's versatile. If something happens, you get rained out, you're not stuck with 500 gallon of product all mixed up.
And they're easy to clean.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I do like that setup. But yeah, Jonathan, you could just use an IBC tote if you wanted to. That'd be fine. Austin says, would these be good for a forestry application as well? I had a business contact me about possibly spraying on steep hills instead of his crew walking through the slash in the clear cuts. Yeah, clear cuts. We do have a lot of guys running clear cuts right now with T30s and T40s. To my knowledge, I don't know that we have anybody using T20Ps. I could be totally wrong. But we have more people running T40s and T30s with forestry jobs, clear cut type work, doing herbicide work. And the reason that they're running T40s and T20 and T30s is because, well, that's what's been available widely. T20P has not been available that long, frankly. I mean, it's been kind of mid-summer whenever it was released. I do think it would work for a forestry job, depending on how high you had to be, because you do lose some of that downforce, right, from 40 to 20P, just because it weighs less. Well, like Gabe said, I mean, he's using large droplet sizes, and he's using Loctite or a DRA of any kind, really, is going to help a lot when it comes to herbicide application, like in a forestry type job where you're applying at a higher altitude potentially. So I think personally, T20P would be a fantastic drone for forestry, where you might have to, travel, quite a bit, and, have it in the back of a truck to get closer to different areas. Yeah, I think T20P would be a great drone. Plus, the guys that I've talked to that do forestry, they said, they've been testing out different carrier rates with herbicides, and so long as you can keep those herbicides in suspension in the mix, you can run your rates low, 2 gallon, 3 gallon to the acre pretty easily with those forest herbicides, and get good kill. Okay, yeah, Adnan, you've got a lot of good comments in here. Thank you. Jesse says, is there a promo running on batteries for the T20P? There is not a promo running on batteries for the T20P that DJI has available right now. But again, you only need 2 batteries. So, and you can run T30 batteries, which already saves you $1,000 if you buy 2 of them. So your promo is buy T30 batteries instead of T40 batteries and only have to buy 2 of them. So I mean, it's just a cheaper setup all around. But yeah, we'll let you know, Jesse, if there is a promo that comes out. Okay, Todd asks, for spot spraying applications, do you identify the spray areas when you get to the site, or does the farmer tell you what area to spray? Would you use a M3M, provide farmers actionable information about the field? All right, Todd, here's my 2 cents on the M3M and on spot spraying and on doing that kind of job. So first off, the M3M does not tell you what to do in the field. The M3M has 4 spectral cameras on it, and it's got 1 RGB or regular red, green, blue, regular camera, 20 megapixel, really good camera for mapping. So it's a very good mapping drone, but that's all it is. It is a mapping drone. The multispectral side of it doesn't actually have as much value in row crop as most people outside of the agronomy kind of world think it does. It has less value than you might believe. You can get a lot of the same information as far as like NDVI indexes from just a regular RGB camera without having multispectral at all. And multispectral is not going to help you find weeds. It's not going to help you necessarily identify disease better. It's not going to do anything like that. So there are some advantages to having multispectral, but you have to know, whenever it says this area is low health, and the M3M doesn't tell you that. You have to put the images into like a program like Pix4D, where it runs the analysis for you and it gives you like an NDVI map, vegetative index map, and it says this area is high health, this area is low health by color coordinating that. It doesn't tell you why it's high health or why it's low health. It just tells you this area is low health. So you have to go out there and look at that area, boots on the ground, eyes on the leaf in the field, and see what's wrong. Is it a nutrient issue? Is it a fungal pressure issue? Is it a insect issue? Is it a soil saturation issue? And what is it? And then you have to determine what to do to solve it. So the M3M doesn't do that for you. Okay. Secondly, on here, spot spraying. Okay, so there's no precedence for spot spraying. There's not a 20-year-old industry with spot spraying. There used to be. It was called weed pulling. You'd go out and pull weeds. That was your spot spraying. So ever since the days of Roundup, that's gone away. And so now we're back. We're back to kind of that same idea. How did you charge for weed pulling? How did you charge back in the day? Well, I don't know, probably by the hour, because who knows how long you're going to be out there. So same thing with spot spraying. The farmer might tell you where the weeds are at if there's big groups of them, or you might have, kind of sporadic bunches of weeds all over the field, where you have to use a mapping drone and you have to use software that takes a lot of time. It takes special training to do that. And so your time is valuable. And so how do you charge for that? How do you conduct it? This is something we're all figuring out right now.
One I'll add to that, the one that one job that we did, I just used Manual Plus. I flew it out there, used the camera on it, and found them, and then we actually used my brother's Mavic 3 Mini just to kind of go out there, and we hovered it over our where I was spraying, and just so I could kind of make sure I got it all. But it worked. I'm not saying it was the best way to do it, but
no, Manual Plus is awesome.
Manual Plus it does work very well.
Yeah.
If another instance, if you're in a field and there's 50 foot of corn, and then you got a row of power lines, and then the rest of the field's on the other side of that, I just manual plus that 50 foot and not worry about mapping it, you know.
Yeah. And if you guys on here don't know what we're talking about with Manual Plus is a type of operation that you can do with T20P, T40, any DJI spray drone, where you input height, speed, route spacing, and rate, and droplet size, and then you manually fly it to where you want it to do that, and it keeps, you control where it goes. It controls everything else for you. It's really, really, really cool use for spot spraying, especially when you loop in a big screen on a remote with a good camera like it has.
Yes.
Flight speed, you're probably you were flying at 32 feet per second. Is that right?
Yep. Fast it'll go.
Perfect. Kyler says comparison between T40 and T20P, acres an hour and swath width. I think we already covered this. You were saying you can get over a little 30 acres an hour with T20P.
Yep, probably 32, 34. The T40 was more towards that 40. T40 swath width was 32 foot, and the T20P swath width we're running about 28. So
yeah,
unless it's the long fields, and we'll narrow it down so we can make it down and back.
Yeah. Corey, I know we have not overlooked questions in the Q&A. We just haven't got there yet. We will get there, I promise. We have a lot of questions. We're working through that. So thank you for letting us know.
We're almost done on these ones.
Yeah. Okay. Adnan asks, in the USA, you charge per acre or per liter for spray service. Yeah. How much do you guys charge per acre?
We're charging $15 per acre on the application if the customer purchases the fungicide from us or the product from us, and just adding $1 if they don't. So 16 if they don't buy it from us.
I think that's pretty consistent for fungicide application in the Midwest.
Yes.
With drone, but 15, 16 bucks. Guys,
we try to stay competitive with the airplanes.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think personally you could probably charge more with the drone, especially like you look like a T20P, where if you just focus on smaller field type jobs, where the airplane can't get to, the helicopter isn't going to want to get to, then if they can't do it and you can, then there's lower supply of the service, and so you could charge. And a lot of guys that do that, they do charge more for those smaller fields.
Right. And another thing to put in there too is, we have a lot of guys around here that they're farming 100 acres or 200 acres, or less than that, and they might have 30 acres of corn that they want done. Well, we do an acre minimum of 40 acres, and if it's less than 40 acres, we just charge them $400 an hour.
There you go. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, Leggett says that you got a guy down there running T20P for forestry that's running off of a side-by-side. Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, it's running it off of a UTV. That's awesome. Yeah, Adnan. Yep. I figured you had lots more questions. Okay, we're gonna switch over to the Q&A. We'll start at the top with this, I believe. Okay, Boyd says, for Gabe, could you please go over your tender trailer setup again?
Yeah, so we've got a 8.5 by 24 foot enclosed trailer. Could you go back to I think we had a couple pictures of it on here. Yeah, no problem. Yeah. So there it is. We've got the 15,000 watt generator in the back of the truck there. And so for our fresh water, we have a 550 gallon transport tank, just strapped into the center of the trailer there. We have a freshwater pump running off of that tank into our induction cones. We have two 30-gallon induction cones that we mix our hot loads into. And then we have a separate pump, our chemical pump, to fill the drones with off of the cones. The one T30 charger 4 batteries, and both cooling stations are in there. You can see me sitting up top there. We had to put a piece of plywood down on top of the roof because just a manufacturing error. It was supposed to be walkable and it ended up not being. So, but it's seeming to work very well for us.
That's great. Yeah. Yeah. Effective, but simple also. I
Yes.
think.
Yep. And if you're building one, it's kind of like when you build a barn, you gotta make sure you have enough room in it. You know, don't get a small trailer because
Yeah.
you got product and drones and extra you know, your charging batteries and parts, and there's more than just the chemical and the drones in there. So just keep that in mind. Give yourself plenty of room.
Spend time and money on good plumbing setup.
Yes.
So that it's
Yes.
easy to build a drone. You do it every 4 or 5 minutes. So
Yes.
Austin asked, do you have a separate scout drone to map fields prior to application, or you can get by without it? I think most everybody doesn't scout field before application, you know, unless you're doing some kind of spot application. Yeah, you're just using satellite imagery. Okay, Todd says, can you talk about the average annual parts maintenance items and associated costs? Did you guys have any repairs on your T20Ps?
Nope.
Yeah.
I had to change one blade from a user error, but other than that, no.
Yeah. Yeah, so parts and maintenance items can be literally like $0 on a T20P or even a T40.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's nothing that's just going to wear out over 3,000 acres necessarily, or even
Yep.
5,000 acres necessarily.
I'll chime in on that. If you're doing a lot of cover crop, just keep an eye on them.
Yeah.
I mean,
props, you mean?
yes,
Yeah.
on your props. We did a lot of that annual ryegrass. It's really fluffy, so we didn't see a lot, but I did see a little bit of wear. You know, you can see where the tillage radishes are, like the more dense BB type of seed, where it was hitting them. And you could hear it too sometimes. So if you're flying close to you, going by, you could hear them smacking the props.
Yeah. Yes, that is a good point. You cover crops do chew up props.
Yes.
And you know, so what is going to wear out eventually, besides props, of course? Well, it's going to be we see the ESCs in the small motors, being the pump motors and the centrifugal motors. Those ESCs do wear out, and it's tied in with the motor. And so, like your pump motors and your centrifugal motors, we do see those kind of be like some of the first things that are probably going to wear out now. Is everybody going to have that problem? No. That may just have been like, you know, one of the manufacturers of that item, you know, one of the suppliers of that item for DJI had poorer quality than the other. And that was like, we saw that like after 4,000 acres or so with T40s, where, you know, wear out, some sooner and some haven't. So,
and keep an eye on you want to keep an eye on the rubber spacers and the nylons that are where your props are mounted to. I've seen those. I've had to change quite a few of those rubbers, which I think there's a new style of those, isn't there?
Yeah, so this is the T20P, and it actually has like their white. So this is the old style. It's
Okay.
got the white washers, plastic washers or nylon washers, and it's got like the rubber in there. That's the old
Yep.
style, and those ones do wear out. The rubber does.
Yep.
This is the new style in the T40, and they're like a cream color, and they don't wear out nearly as often.
Yes.
But you
I have a
get,
pack of those new ones. I haven't changed them out yet. So.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, just get some of those for sure.
Yep.
Like
And
those are dirt cheap, you know. So
right. Another thing too is we bought a good torque wrench for our props. And if you do change props, I don't remember what the inch pounds that we run them to is, but just make sure you put blue Loctite back on them, and because they will loosen up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so so to answer your question, Todd, you know, if you don't ever crash the drone or hit it or run it into something or, you know, knock something off of it, then there's very few things that are just like guaranteed to wear out in the first season, besides, you know, pump motors maybe. So anyways. Okay, Juan says, will you be able to will you be at the World Ag Expo in 2024? Yes, Juan, I will be at the World Ag Expo. I will see you there. Richard, what would be an average price for mapping service such as building a prescription map with the M3M? I know it would be vary by region, but just wondering for starting point operation in Eastern Michigan. There's no real precedence here, Richard, as far as like building a prescription map for somebody with an M3M. What kind of prescription map? What are you looking for? What time of year is it? Is it like an annual service where you're coming out there every 2 weeks to map and provide a report? I mean, there's no precedence here. So, yeah.
We've talked about that a little, and it's going to vary depending on what you're doing. It's going to vary.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's a conversation to have kind of one-on-one and figure it out what the value is worth to the, you know, to the grower. How do you calibrate the spreader for different materials? There's and I don't know if you have access to our resource folder, Michael, but we've got some videos on this. It's very simple. It's built into the system on the T40 and T20P. There's a scale on it, and then you can do 2 different gates: a small gate for small seed, small rate, and a big gate for larger rate stuff.
I use the big gate for everything.
Yeah,
I had pretty good luck. Those tillage radishes we did, they're pretty small little seed, and the big gate worked just fine.
Yeah. Boyd asks, is the T50 battery expected to provide more flight time than a T40 battery? Okay, so Boyd, the T50 battery is not called the T50 battery. It's actually called the DB1560. And yeah, here they are right here. So DB1560, that's a T50 battery there. There's some on the floor, so they look identical to T40 battery for the most part anyways. Same amperage, 30,000 milliamps, but they have higher voltage, one more cell basically, so a bit higher voltage, so a bit longer flight time. I wouldn't say a lot longer flight time, but a bit longer flight time. We haven't done like a true side-by-side test, because I mean, I don't necessarily know why you would right now, because you can't even get the T40 battery, so what's it matter, kind of thing. But what DJI says is 7 to 8%, so more like probably 5 to 4% realistically. We'll see. Okay, Aaron says, what if you only filled the T40 half full? How would that compare in battery life to T20P? That's a good question. Aaron, you will get longer flight time with a T40 half full, but remember, our empty weight flight time with a T20P is 26 minutes. Our empty weight flight time with a T40 is like 15 minutes. So empty, it still has more flight time. T20P does like 10 minutes more flight time. So you know, you fill a T40 and you fill a T20P, you know, that's or you fill it half full on the T40. They may be a bit more comparable, but I still think it's probably gonna be with
You're still
5, yeah.
To add on, you know, there was small fields with the T40, if you're doing short runs, you're going to run out of battery before you run out of payload at 2 gallons.
Yeah.
If that helps answer that.
Yeah. And I know like when
So,
we run when we run the T40, like on if we're on big square fields, half mile, quarter mile runs where every pass is the same, we know we only need maybe 8 gallons. We put 8.5 in there every time.
right.
So that does save battery. We come back
Right.
with like 55%, between 50 and 60% battery left in
Yep.
but we still change it, because we're not gonna want to get back up in the air at a 50% battery, 55% battery with T40. Yeah.
Yep. And
Versus
if
like go ahead. Sorry.
if you're filling your T40 half full, you're gonna fly it out and spray half a tank and change a battery anyway.
Yeah, most likely. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, but yes, Aaron, I guess to elaborate a bit more on that, if you are doing spot spraying with the T40, fill it half full. Don't fill it full. Fill it.
Yeah.
Put 5 gallons in it. You're going to get more flight time. Might not be as good as a T20P would be in the same scenario, but it's going to be better than filling it full. Yeah, Sam asked price difference. We just answered that. And I apologize for you guys that put your questions in the Q&A session for not getting to you sooner, but we gotta go one at a time. Casey says, what is your average field size and rate? What pushed you to switch from T40 to T20P? Gabe, go ahead.
Yep. Our average field size is probably 40 acres around here. We do have some big fields and we have some 1 acre fields and 2 acre fields that we've done. So, I mean, that being said, that's why we switched. And to go back on what I just said a minute ago about the batteries, the T40, it's not as efficient as the T20P. So if you're in a small field and you're turning a lot, not doing a long swath width or a long pass, the T20 is a huge time saver on that.
Yeah, sure thing. Okay. All right, Kyler says comparison between T40 and T20P acres an hour and swath width. I think we covered that, Kyler. Boyd says if running 2 chargers for T40, will an additional generator be required? Well, or a bigger generator. I mean, it's simple math. You need 8,000 watts if you're running on full power in your generator or your charger. Running on half power, you need 4,000 or somewhere around there. So you're going to need a big generator. I know we just talked with a guy today who said they ran a 15,000 watt generator. They ran 2 T30 chargers, but one of them they ran on just 110 with slow charge, and they were able to run both of those. One on slow charge, one on fast charge. And that they said kept up with a T40 with 4 batteries. Great. Sam Hall, what size generator? How many watts do you need to run 2 chargers for T40? Well, we just covered that. Yeah, 20. If you're running both at fast charge, 20 kW. Chase, was this presentation that convincing on the T20P that you're selling your T40? I think there's a use for both drones, honestly.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Can you explain why you charge more for using the farmer's chemicals? I would think with lower input costs, buying chemicals, you would charge less and still have the same gross profit. You might elaborate. I think Todd's confused here.
Okay, so yes, I'll just explain it again. So if the farmer buys the product from us, we make a little money off of the product plus the application at $15. So we try to make up for a little bit of that if they do not buy the product from us.
Yeah,
I guess that's the way we can.
And so Todd, just to clarify, Gabe, Ag Pro, they sell chemicals. And
Yes.
so, yeah, so they're not,
And that's going to be any ag retailer that's how it works.
yeah. And so a
Even
farmer,
if it's a ground rig or whatever.
and so if a farmer is buying chemicals from and the application service from you, Gabe, then they're paying $15 for the application service, and then they're paying plus whatever the chemical costs. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Just to clarify there, Gabe.
Yep.
Okay, Noah says, did you notice any coverage and uniformity difference between spraying with a ground rig and with the drones? Do you have experience there?
Yeah. I don't know. Have you guys done any sort of trials with this?
Yeah, I mean, not a ton. So here's the deal, guys. I'm not gonna stand up here and tell you that drones are better than ground rigs. I'm not gonna tell you that drones are going to replace ground rigs. I'm not gonna tell you that a drone is gonna provide better application than a ground rig is gonna provide. It's all how you use the machine, right?
Yep.
And there are certain applications a ground rig is just better at, and a drone will never replace. There are certain applications that a drone could potentially do better or cheaper or more cost effective or whatever than a ground rig. There's certain applications that a ground rig can't do, right? So you want to drive through a field after it just rained an inch?
Yep.
Well, can't do that with a
Yep.
ground rig.
I will say the coverage is probably slightly better just from what I've seen. I've read some studies. You probably know Steve Lee from Purdue there. He's done quite a bit of that. And I think it was second leaf they were getting with the drone, and then fourth or fifth or third or fourth with the ground rigs and airplanes. So it is getting down there a little bit further.
Yeah, and it does, of course, just depend how you use it. So we've got studies that show like it was on a soybean trial where a drone was about a bushel and a half better than a ground rig. But I on a 70 bushel bean crop, I mean, is that significantly different? Not necessarily. I mean, that could be a fluke. That could just be due to not having the tracks, stomping down the beans.
And running corn over too.
And running the corn over too.
Because you're not gonna not run corn over.
Yeah. I know on wheat, on a wheat application we did with head scab fungicide on wheat. In one application we noticed that a ground rig was better. And that I think that was probably because we had some wind issues with a T30. T30 didn't have as good of a uniformity, it seems like, on pattern whenever you were trying to push it. And so we had a uniformity issue on spray pattern with the T30. That in turn turned to about a 3 bushel difference on a 100 bushel wheat crop, with between a T30 and ground rig with head scab fungicide. So they both have their place, and so we're really just looking at fungicide and insecticide. We're not looking at herbicide. If you're going to do herbicide, you can get across the ground with a ground rig. Use a ground rig.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. This looks like Chase is serious about selling a T40. Okay. And I don't know if we had anything pop up else here in the chat.
Not necessarily, no.
Yeah. Adnan just asked what the radar detection range of T40 and T20P. You can see obstacles a little over 60 feet out on the radar, but when you're flying at 30 feet per second, then that's where T20P could be a little better as far as like stopping faster. Yeah.
The T20P, I run the obstacle avoidance at 13 feet.
Yeah.
And it stops.
Yeah. The side detection obstacle avoidance. Yeah.
It stops. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It is more agile.
Way faster than the T40.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Same radars in the end, though.
Yeah,
Partner.
same radars in both.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's it.
Yep.
That was easy. You guys
Yeah.
they toss softballs up at us.
Perfect.
Yeah. So closing remarks from myself. I guess what would I say kind of in closing here? You know, we've talked a lot about T20P and talked a lot about it, you know, talking it up. And I do like the T20P. And more so, I think I like it so much just because it's surprisingly efficient and surprisingly versatile for what it, you know, for being a small drone. Is it better than the T40? Well, that just depends what you're doing, right? It's not better in every application than the T40. You know, I think, you know, the T40 is still going to be more widely used because it's a bigger drone. You can do higher rates with it, stuff like that. But if you don't need to do that and you have small fields, then you seriously need to consider the T20P. If you want to do spot spraying, you seriously need to consider the T20P. That's what I would say.
It's good all around.
Yeah, it is a
sure.
good all-around drone. Yeah, I somebody we were talking about this, and I don't know if there's any guys that are John Deere tractor fans. I I grew up a Red fan, but of course everybody knows John Deere. And they had a tractor, the 4020 back in the day, and everybody's got a 4020, it seems like, on their farm right now because they're bulletproof, you know,
Yep.
and they're right size to be very versatile. You can use them for a lot of different things. So I kind of think the T20P is the 4020 of the drone
There you go.
industry.
That's a good way to put it.
It's very versatile. It's about bulletproof. Anybody can hop on it and run it. That's my opinion. Yeah. All right, guys. Thank you for joining us here tonight on another edition of AgriSpray Q&A. If you want to see more T20P, then check out our YouTube videos on the T20P. We'll be bringing more out soon. If you would like more information on T20P, reach out to us at agrispraydrones.com, info at agrispraydrones, of course, on our Facebook channel as well. Gabe, thank you very much for
Thank you.
being
No
here
problem.
tonight. You
Yeah.
bet. And
Anytime.
and best of luck to you next season.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. Have a good night, guys.